Welcome to the Pat White Show. Well, the Fort Wayne City Council had to do something I'm sure they weren't pleased with doing. That was approving next year's budget that contained $8 million of cuts. Now, why do they have to cut $8 million out of next year's budget? Well, simply the state of Indiana, they passed SB 1, cutting your property taxes. Now, if your property taxes go down, cities don't have enough money or enough money they used to get, because now they're not getting as much cut of the property taxes as they used to. So, city had to cut $8 million of their budget. One of the biggest things they had to cut, well, at least one of the major things they had to cut, was a sign, an $815,000 sign that says Fort Wayne. You're coming up northbound 69 over there by the Jefferson off-ramp. $815,000 for a sign. I remember back in 1994, and some of you may remember this, Fort Wayne had their bicentennial. And one of the things the bicentennial committee did was place these markers around Fort Wayne, and there are various places around Fort Wayne. The one I know is over by the Hall's factory, up on Coldwater Road, right in front of the restaurant, commemorating 200 years of the fort. They've been kind of left in disrepair for a little bit, but what makes anybody think that putting a sign that says Fort Wayne is going to be a welcoming thing to have people say, "Oh, honey, I saw a cool sign coming into Fort Wayne. Let's move there." Sorry, that doesn't work for me. Now, the city council did, in fact, cut it, but they cut some more stuff too. Cut another $1 million out of the southeast side of the Fort Wayne. I don't know what it was for. Could have been roads, could have been sidewalks, what have you. But here's another big one they cut, $4 million from the Riverfront project. Now, this is the one where the mayor wants to put in that great big giant field house, but it's some other private entrepreneurs like Chuck Sirac and some of those other folks. They're offering a big money to put something in themselves, as private entrepreneurs, in that acreage that's right there on the north side of the river by the bridge. Well, maybe the mayor is not going to have the money to put that in, but as a result, the Fort Wayne budget was cut back by $8 million. Now they're saying, well, we got to find a way to get more money because cities always want more money. But let's see if they can survive on $8 million less and not putting in an $815,000 sign that, frankly, in my opinion, and my opinion only, is a waste of time and money. Having a sign that says Fort Wayne next to the side of the road is not going to increase our population. Sorry, Mayor, just how I feel. However, what's the thing to look for? Well, let's go and see what happens in the following years, because the property tax is going to keep going down and down and down. Because eventually they want property tax to go away. So how are cities going to raise money to, run the cities? Local option income tax? That's probably going to be one of their routes. They do already have the restaurant tax that you know about because you're paying a little extra restaurant tax that gives the city more money to play with. But in this case, city budget had to be cut. Now, they do have a balanced budget. That's according to Russ Yale. And he said, hey, we're fine right now. Mayor is not happy. Some of the other council people are not happy. But you have less money to work with? Well, then you're going to have to do with what you got to do. Make with what you got, folks. That's what it is. So now you understand that $815,000 sign, that's not going to happen. And frankly, folks, we've got big signs that go across the top of the highway. Those big green and white signs say Fort Wayne. Isn't that all we need? Do we need a sign that says, hello, Fort Wayne, here we are? People know where we are. They see the signs on the overhead of the highway. They read it on the map. The GPS tells them as they go by. But $815,000 can be better spent on roads, sidewalks, and a whole bunch of other improvements you could probably think of. So thank goodness they're not doing it. But the budget has been cut by $8 million because the state has now starting to cut your property taxes. And isn't it about time? Well, if you've been watching your television lately, you've probably seen one or more stories over the recent couple of weeks about the United States military blowing up cartel boats in either the Pacific or in the Caribbean. And we've done it repeatedly. I don't know, 5, 6 times. They said we've killed about 14 people. Well, now the UN, the United Nations Human Rights Chief, has come out and demanded that the United States stop doing this because, well, we're violating international law. And he said, unless we're at war with somebody, that we shouldn't be able to be killing people. Well, my question is this: who could we be at war with? If you're going to declare war on somebody, you can declare war on a country, whether it's Japan or whether it's Germany back in World War II. I don't think we had a declaration of war in Vietnam, and I sure as hell don't know who the heck you would declare war upon. You could say, well, what cartel you want to go to, but we don't even know what cartel is trying to run all these drugs across the Caribbean or into the Pacific Ocean to the United States. So what we're doing is saying, we're going to monitor them when they come across. We're going to blow them out of the water. That's what we're going to do. It's what the president said, and we're doing it. The UN says, no, you can't do that. That's inhumane. Well, explain something else to me. What's inhumane about people putting fentanyl into the United States and killing hundreds and thousands of people every year with one tiny grain of fentanyl? It's killing our young people, killing all kinds of folks who don't even realize there's been fentanyl put into what they think is a legitimate drug. And it's killing them. And that's what they're running across the sea, running across the Caribbean, running across the South Pacific. And they're saying, well, these could be fishermen. Let me tell you something. Fishermen do not go around in boats with 4 250 horsepower V8s on the back of their boat capable of 1,000 horsepower running over 200 miles an hour. Fishermen don't do that. Fishermen don't have 55-gallon drums of fuel in the front of the boat to feed those 4 250 horsepower engines for the number of hours it takes to fly across the strait to bring their drugs toward the United States. Those are not fishing boats. Sorry. If you think they are, then you need a lesson in fishing. Or you also need somebody to take a bamboo cane and whack you upside the head because you don't know what you're talking about. Fishermen, a small little motor, even these little silent motors, they don't run 200 miles an hour going to fishing places, especially at 1,000 horsepower on the back of a boat. Doesn't work that way. And with 55-gallon barrels of fuel, gee, what are they doing with that? No, bringing in fentanyl, drugs. That's the way the cartels run things. But the problem is this: once we stop the cartels from running the boats up from wherever they're coming from into the Caribbean or up to the South Pacific, cartels are going to find another way. And here's what I understand they're doing. We've closed off the southern border pretty doggone well. Yep, done pretty well. Know what they're doing, know when things are coming, and we intercept things that are going on. But the newest thing they're bringing it through the north, sending boats up to Quebec, unload the boats, then bring it across the Canadian border. Because the Canadian border, ladies and gentlemen, is extremely, extremely porous. It's forest land up there. There's no big wall up there. There's no 30-foot wall like we have down south. It's just an imaginary line that runs through the forest. Canada, Mexico, or Canada, United States. That's what's happening. So the drug folks have said, well, we're going to bring it in one way or the other. And right now they're using the boats coming in through Canada or through Vancouver, whichever way they're coming in. It's happening. But right now, the UN says you can't kill people coming in the United States. It's not nice. It's mean you have to declare a war. Declare a war against whom, I ask? If you're running the drugs, you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk, you're going to be blown out of the water. The president said he's going to keep doing it. And frankly, as a parent with kids, I happen to say that's fine with me. And by the way, fentanyl doesn't kill just kids. It kills adults. You might think that Tylenol somebody gave you, it may not be the quite Tylenol you think. Just saying, you're going to run drugs, you F around, you find out. That's the rule, and that's the game. Drugs, we don't need them in this country, and we're going to stop them coming in any way we can until the cartels figure out a different way to do it. Right now, we're going to take out the way they're using. Well, you may have heard about the big FBI raid that took place up in Dearborn and Inkster, Michigan. Now, these are suburbs of Detroit. I want to fill you in on some stuff maybe you didn't know. Turns out the FBI arrested 3 individuals who were planning on, well, some sort of, I guess the word massacre might want to be used, or a terrorist attack, maybe another word you want to use. Apparently, they were planning it on Pumpkin Day, which, as most people think, is probably Halloween. But the FBI had been watching this and into chat rooms and chatting to people, which they didn't know they were being chatting with, and busted the 3 people in this particular organization. Turns out these 3 individuals had been going to indoor shooting ranges and practicing with AK-47s. AK-47s are a very dangerous weapon, and those that were used over in the Middle East. So, FBI arrested the 3 individuals. Not the first time the FBI has. Back in May, they had another arrest of a gentleman who thought he was working with people that were, well, on his side, but they were FBI informants. Now, this is all coming from like I said, from Dearborn and Inkster. Now, if you know anything about Michigan, and you know anything about Dearborn, Dearborn is the largest capital of the Islamic religion in the United States. They have the largest temple in the United States. And every day, starting at, I don't know what early hour of the morning, the siren goes up, the calling goes up, and people have to go to prayer. That happens multiple times in Dearborn. And the reason I know this because I lived in Dearborn 10 years ago. And back 10 years ago, driving down the street of Dearborn, the thing that struck me as strange was all the signage, the national signage you like for your favorite burger joint or a business, a restaurant, whatever it was. It was in Farsi. That's right, the language of Farsi, yet it had American subtitles. Yes, it did. But everything was in Farsi, in Muslim, in Arabic. Now, so many Muslims have settled in Dearborn, and for whatever reason, and also in Inkster, which is another suburb, which is just a bit to the west of Dearborn. Now, these individuals are plotting an attack. And you have to understand something about the Muslim religion. There's 2 factions. There's the Sunni and the Shiite, 2 different factions of the same religion. Sunnis are basically, well, the vast majority of Muslims in the United States, worldwide, are all Sunnis. Very peaceful, get along, they're fine. They're just like regular folks. This Shiite, different animal. They are coming from the radical side. And the radical side believes if you are not a Muslim, you are an infidel. And as an infidel, you must be eliminated. You must be killed. That's essentially what this is. So, you've got the Sunni and the Shiite, and apparently a number of these individuals are of the Shiite variety. This comes down to what are taught to them in the various mosques by the mullahs they're dealing with. And then you have the Shiite mullahs and the Sunni mullahs. 2 different factions of the same religion. And there's the problem, folks. The FBI is watching this stuff. But remember, it's not so much you've got to worry about the outside people coming across the sea or whatever to attack us. You better be worried about what's going on the inside. Are we being attacked from inside that's been planned for years? Your call. I'm just telling you what's going on. Just so you understand, the FBI is on this. They're trying to stop it as much as they can. But there are people in that particular facet of that religion that believe that if you're not one of them, you're definitely not one of them, and you must be taken out. That's what their religion believes, and that's what their mullahs tell them. It's coming from the inside, folks, not from the outside. Be aware, this could be going on under your nose, and you better start paying attention. Well, if you'll indulge me a few minutes, I'd like to talk about that UPS 2976, the MD-11F that went down in Louisville. Let me tell you a little bit about that airplane and maybe something to give you something to think about. That airplane, in particular one, was built in 1991. That was back in the days when McDonnell Douglas was trying to come up with an airplane to compete with Boeing. Turns out that particular airplane, 3-engine, only 200 of them were actually made. And they tried to fly them in the airlines, but they didn't meet up the specs they were supposed to, and for fuel usage and time en route and everything else. So the airlines kind of let them go. KLM, I think, was the last one to fly it. Well, ultimately, the package people, the parcel folks, the UPSs and the FedExes, well, they're the ones driving these planes because they hold a lot of stuff. And this particular aircraft, 2976, it's a 3-engine aircraft, and it's got obviously one engine on each side, and it's got the middle engine in the top. So it is 3 engines. Now, this aircraft weighs approximately 630,500 pounds. That, my friends, is 286 tons. Now, when it was taken off, it had around 50,000 gallons of JP4. That's gasoline, if you think about it. 50,000 gallons. You say, man, that's a lot of gas. Why do they have so much gas? Flying from Louisville to Honolulu, Hawaii, is about 7,000, a little over 7,000 miles. Takes roughly almost 9 hours, 8 hours and 40 minutes, I believe, because you're going westbound. You got a headwind because of the jet stream. So you're not going quite as fast and quite as quickly, but you're going to burn up a lot of gas going that distance. Well, here's the problem. That plane lined up, and there's 2 numbers you need to think about in this aircraft. By the way, it's a nice aircraft. It's a glass cockpit. It looks really nice. But there's 2 numbers to think about. In the airline biz or in the flying game, there's 2 numbers that are very crucial. One is V1, and the next one is VR. Okay, what does V1 mean? V1 is your go or no-go speed. And I'm thinking this thing probably was somewhere around 140 knots, 142 knots, somewhere in there. That's your go, no-go speed. That means that above that, well, you can't stop on the runway you have left. I mean, you can hit the brakes, you can do everything you can. The plane is not, it's going to go off the end of the runway. That's going to happen if you try to stop after V1. So that's your go, no-go speed. And then the next speed is called VR. That's your rotate speed. And usually that's 5-6 knots above the V1 speed. And it depends upon the aircraft and the weather conditions, everything else. But here's what happened in this aircraft. You have to understand, when a plane takes off, that engine is at the highest RPM it could possibly be. I mean, it is screaming as hard as it could go because you got full throttle on the levers. I mean, you got this thing shoved to the wall. You got to get a lot of speed up because you got a big, heavy aircraft. Like I said, 630,000 pounds, 286 tons. That's a big aircraft. So you push it up, hit your V1, and wait for the VR to come along so you can rotate. Well, what happened to this aircraft? Something happened in that number 1 engine. The number 1 engine and the nacelle literally came off the aircraft. How and why, we don't know yet. But when it did, it cut through all the hydraulic lines and all the other hot lines that are going through it, and it burst into flame. Now, what happened with the plane was, because it went into that left wing, it essentially cut the left wing off. So if you got no lift on the left wing, but you got a lift on the right wing, plane is going to do this kind of scissors routine. And you've seen some of the video that comes from people, dash cams and things like that. You see the plane kind of sliding like this. And it did. Came down the left side, and it cut a huge swath, about half a mile, and went through a lot of areas. Ultimately killed, I think, 11 or 12 people. And obviously the crew of 3 on board. Very unfortunate, very sad, but understand, takeoff is the most dangerous portion of a flight. You're going slow and you're trying to get to go fast. You got the engines up to high rev, and you're very heavy. You got all that gas on board. Landing, throttles all the way back, don't have a lot of fuel. It's easier. Let's put it that way. So it was unfortunate what this happened. Now, this is an old plane. Like I said, it was made in 1991, only 200 made, as I said earlier. But there's the problem. And eventually, we'll find out exactly what happened on that aircraft. Many years ago, a DC-10 had an engine separate. I think it was back around 1979 when that happened. But a fairly rare occasion when an engine will separate like that and then sell, because they found the engine on the runway. Now, that runway has pretty much been closed down because it's a crash scene. And so they got everything figured out and do all the inspections and try to put this thing together. They're going to have preliminary stuff. You'll learn that in probably 30 days. Long-term investigation is going to take about 2 years, because they've got to piece it all together, put things together, and try to figure out why that engine left the aircraft. And for whatever reason, they find that's a serious problem. All the other Mad Dog 11s could be shut down. Mostly, like I said, used by FedEx, UPS, as transports. And this airplane was a big transport, flying from Louisville to Honolulu, Hawaii. 8-hour flight, 7,000 miles, and 50,000 gallons of gasoline on board. That's what happened. Unfortunate, yes. We don't know when the pilot realized something had gone bad, but I'll tell you, when that engine let go and took the wing with it, wasn't much you could do. And you came in flying like a knife. And that's what happened in Louisville, Kentucky. And now maybe you understand a little bit more. Well, if you have nothing on your dance card on Wednesday, November the 12th, allow me to give you a suggestion. Turn on your TV. The Golf Channel will be just fine if you have that available to you, and watch what's going on. You're saying, why do I want to watch TV on the 12th of November? Golf? Yeah, this is like golf you've never seen. Turns out this is the Anika. Now, this is the Anika Sword and Stands Golf Tournament. It's down in Tampa, Florida. Played at the Pelican Club. Now, this tournament's pretty big because it honors Anika, and it's a very special tournament. Last year, they had a special guest come in. It was none other than Caitlin Clark. Now, when they were going to have the tournament, the tickets were okay, but when they announced Caitlin Clark was coming, suddenly the tickets blew up. Everybody wanted to get one. Kids were there, and the Caitlin Clark shirts, and they were all wanting to get autographs. It was a huge deal. It was bigger than anybody imagined. And it got even bigger when Caitlin stepped up to the tee number 1. Now, tee number 1 in golf, everybody's hanging around you. If you're going to screw up, that's where you're going to screw up. And because there's a lot of pressure on you, right? Well, Caitlin Clark gets on tee number 1, puts the ball on the ground on the tee, stands up there, and whacks it. She didn't just whack it, she crushed it. 270 yards straight down the middle. People were looking at each other going, what? Tiger Woods was there in the crowd. He went, holy cow, never seen anything like this. Is a generational person. This person is something unusual. Turns out Caitlin Clark was, yes, very unusual, because when she finished playing in this Pro-Am, an official Pro-Am, she set the Guinness World Records for a Pro-Am meet score. She scored 13 under par. I don't know anything about golf, but 13 under is really serious for being a non-golfer. 13 under par. All right, so that was last year. This year, she's been invited back, and obviously she's coming again because Gainbridge, if you know the name Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indy, they're one of the sponsors. They definitely want to have their queen there, basketball, at their event. So yes, Caitlin Clark is going to be golfing again, because the LPGA has decided they are going to treat her like a queen that she is, and she is a queen. Unfortunately, the WNBA does not treat her that way because for fear of upsetting all the other players in the WNBA who hate, despise, and generally do not want Caitlin Clark around because she's ruining what they have, apparently. She's getting airplane rides with nice airplanes, but who cares? So anyway, she's going to be down there playing again. But here's the cool part. Tres Leches is coming back together again. You're going, what? Trace, let's say it's Three Milks. No, the Three White Girls. See the T-shirt? That was a big T-shirt down in Indianapolis during the season. The Three White Chicks. You had Caitlin Clark, you had Sophie Cunningham, and Lexi Hall. So Sophie and Lexi are also coming down to be part of this tournament as guest caddies. I have no idea who they're going to be caddying for. Could it be Caitlin Clark, their caddies? I couldn't tell you. But the fact that all three of these women are going to be in that tournament, involved in that tournament, whether they're golfing or whether they're just caddying, who knows? It's must-see TV. People want to see it. The tickets are essentially sold out. Can't get a ticket to the thing. It's monstrous. And all the pros and celebrities are coming down. They want to see this. Because you see, Caitlin Clark really is a generational star. She's one of the few that we've ever seen. And she's broken every record you can think of. And as a matter of fact, Forbes says the team, the Indy Fever, are worth $55 million. There's no other franchise in the WNBA that comes near that because she is the franchise. And right now, whether anybody likes it or not, Caitlin Clark is the WNBA. Without her, the WNBA goes back to 3,000 people a match and playing in high school gyms. And by the way, riding back on regular airlines like the rest of us do. So yes, she is a star, but is she going to stay with the WNBA? I don't know. What's the WNBA going to do? Who knows? Right now, they're in a 30-day cooling off period because of their contract ended. Are they going to go into a walkout, a strike? Who knows? But right now, the LPGA says Caitlin Clark is a queen, and they're treating her that way. And they're taking advantage of this. And guess what? America thinks it's pretty doggone cool. So now you know, Wednesday, November 12th, coming up this week, the Golf Channel, I believe, has the whole thing. The Pro-Am, not the tournament. Tournament runs the 13th through the 16th. Just the Pro-Am. See Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall, who, by the way, is getting married. See all three of them down at one tournament? Woo! Numbers for ratings should be astounding, and it'd probably be kind of fun to be down there to watch. Now you know what's going on. Make plans on your TV on Wednesday because this is going to be a golfing event like no other golfing event you've ever seen. And frankly, you ever will see. Something to watch. Well, what do you say we have a little conversation about cable television and maybe what you're getting or not getting? All right, over the years, cable television has been the mainstay for people to get all the entertainment they wanted. Sure, you get the ABCs, the NBCs, CBSs, but you were looking for the other channels that, well, cable has, like ESPN, HBO, Showtime, all the other extra things that you liked watching. And for years, the biggest companies that provided that were places like Comcast and Spectrum. And those were the big players in the cable TV industry over the years. But not too long ago, something else sort of started to crop up because more and more people were getting it. And that's called the internet. And then suddenly they said, hey, you know what? Rather than transmitting a cable TV over a copper phone line or whatever it is came into your home, you could get it on the internet directly into your home via your internet connection. Well, that led companies to say, hey, let's start putting our video, the product that we produce, let's start putting it on the internet. That way we don't have to go through cable companies and end up paying people. And it's a money deal, folks. Just understand that. So a company got started up on cable TV called YouTube. Now, everybody knows what YouTube is. YouTube's got all the instructional stuff and the news stuff and the podcast stuff and who knows what else. But the people at YouTube says, hey, we can work out a deal with the networks and start our own, cable TV company. Except it's not cable TV. It's getting the same channels via the internet. And that's exactly what they did. So they created a company called YouTube TV. YouTube TV is different than YouTube. YouTube TV is a subscriber-based. And usually in the beginning, it's cheaper than cable. Because cable, They've got all the parts to worry about, all the cables to worry about, and the fees they have to pay to the cities to put their cables on the city's phone poles and those kind of things. Very labor intensive, very parts intensive. Well, internet, hey, you put it in the internet, anybody can get it. So that's what YouTube TV did. Started their own, well, cable TV network. And it started out rather inexpensively. Now, once the people got involved, the various providers, the networks are saying, hey, well, you know, you were paying a little bit now, but we want you to pay us more money because you're getting bigger. And what that means is people who previously had, say, Comcast or whatever particular cable company they were with, they're saying, well, heck, I don't need that anymore. I'll just get my video from the internet. Streaming, they call it. Get the internet, and we'll get the cable there, not through a cable company, and all the issues that go with that. That sounded pretty good when you think about it, and a lot of people did it. Well, it turns out this YouTube TV, this new cable TV service, is now the number 3 biggest in the United States. Yes, Comcast is number 1, Spectrum's number 2, but YouTube TV is growing every single day, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, the Disney folks who have Disney and ABC and ESPN and all the side channels that Disney has said to the people at YouTube TV, hey, we want to renegotiate our rates. We want to get what you're paying us. You're getting so many more people. They're coming over to you from Comcast and Spectrum. We want you to pay more for our services. And the folks at the YouTube TV says, no, we think that, you know, we are number 3, but we're about to become number 1 in the next couple of years, so we want the same rates that you were giving to Comcast. Well, the people at Disney said, no, we're going to charge you more because you're not as big. And you get really big, we'll charge you a better rate. So there was the impasse. And Comcast, well, and then the Disney folks and the YouTube TV people said, no, we're at an impasse. We're not going to do that. Everybody's advertising, hey, you're going to lose this, you're going to lose that. And ultimately, a few days ago, yes, YouTube TV lost ABC, ESPN, and all the Disney channels. They're gone temporarily. Now, how long is this going to last? Well, sometimes they last a day. The longest ones have been about a week. Now, they each need each other. Trust me, they each need each other. The question is Disney going to give the YouTube TV the same rates they're getting from Comcast, is paying those channels, or are they going to have to pay a higher rate, even though they're moving up and it gradually will become the number 1 place for video? That's the rub. I can't tell you what it's going to be. I can't tell you when it'll be settled, and I can't tell you how much it's going to be paying. But I can tell you this. If you end up having to pay more for Disney than you were previously paying for ESPN, if you're having to have to pay more, well, guess what? The rate you're paying DirecTV is going to go up, just so you know. Every time these companies providing a service call for more money, that's passed on to you. And that's how the game works, folks. That's how it worked with cable TV. That's how it's going to work with streaming TV. And eventually, these companies are going to say, we're going to stand alone, do our own thing, and you pay each one individually for the channels you want. That's how it's coming someday. Not yet, but it is coming. So if you have YouTube TV and you're missing your ABC and your Disney, it'll be over soon. I can't tell you when, but it could end up costing you more money every month when you pay your bill.